30,000 Americans, one group, seriously injured from the COVID-19 vaccine. How can the cacophony of that much suffering and injury just be ignored by our health authorities? That is the question I'm often asked. And I think to understand the answer to that question, you have to understand the paradigm into which COVID-19 vaccines fell. There are two ways you assure product safety in this country. The first way you assure product safety is, and this is the most critical way, the most important way, is market forces. The most effective way to assure a company doesn't make a product that injures people is to make sure that if they injure people, they know they're going to have to pay, because that hurts their bottom line. But what happens when you tell a company, hey, don't worry, you can sell your product no matter what injury it causes, you don't have to pay? It creates an incredible moral hazard. There's virtually no product in America where you cannot sue the manufacturer for the injuries that that product causes. The main exception, pretty much the only exception that has robust immunity, are vaccines. The class action lawyers, the product liability attorneys have been neutered, to put it mildly. They're nowhere to be seen when it comes to vaccines. You cannot sue a pharmaceutical company pretty much. Pretty much. There are very narrow exceptions for virtually any injury from a vaccine. That is 37 years of unchecked market forces on an industry that is very smart and knows how to make money. The regulators here, which is the Department of Health and Human Services, under which you have the FDA, CDC, NIH, they are hopelessly conflicted. They're hopelessly conflicted because not only are they responsible for safety, they are also responsible for promotion of vaccines. And those are diametrically opposed. They're in utter conflict. For example, the Department of Transportation promotes transportation in this country. They want more airplanes, they want more airlines. Well, Congress recognized if we let the Department of Transportation grab hand with industry and promote transportation, it's hard to shake hand and say, hey, get more airplanes in the air, at the same time smack you for not having safety planes. So Congress said, oh, well, we should create a completely separate agency, the National Transportation Safety Board, separate from the Department of Transportation. One promotes transportation, one assures safety. But when it comes to vaccines, they're not separate. They both exist in the Department of Health and Human Services. And the promotion function has totally overtaken the safety function. Not immediately, not in a day, but it's been going on for 37 years. The fact that they've become hopelessly conflicted and the fact that these health authorities literally view that their mission is basically completely aligned with the pharma companies, you don't need to take my word for it. Next slide, please. This is a report from Congress from 2000 in which the conflicts from the majority staff report from the Committee on Government Reform, United States House of Representatives. And they went and they looked at the FDA and CDC vaccine committees. And here's what they found. Quote, the overwhelming majority of members, both voting members and consultants, have substantial ties to the pharmaceutical industry, end quote. That's Congress saying that. You'd think that after this is a scathing report, the CDC and FDA would feel the need to clean up their act and maybe uncouple themselves from the pharmaceutical industry. 37 years, you have had this paradigm developing in this country around vaccines, in which pharmaceutical companies have been unchecked in terms of market forces and have been unchecked by regulatory health authorities. That is the paradigm in which COVID-19 vaccines fell into. Here's the proof. Anybody know of any lawsuit against Pfizer or Moderna for an injury from one of their COVID-19 vaccines? No, none. PrEP Act immunity. And if that wasn't applicable, it would have been the same 1986 Act we looked before. They have double immunity, frankly. under the 1986 Act, you actually could technically still sue, for example, for fraud, just if you could get the proof and plead it. Under PrEP Act immunity, if you had proof, if you literally came to me and said, here it is, I have a recording of all the meetings of people in Pfizer sitting together, plotting, scheming, I could show you abject fraud under the PrEP Act as written, put aside whether I think it's constitutional, as written, the Department of Justice or the HHS regulatory authorities would have to actually first bring a case for that fraud before any lawyers could do that. Any other lawyers like myself, civil litigators, could do that. That's an incredible amount of protection. In fact, when I saw it the first time, I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe that that was in the laws, but there it was. It goes back to what I said earlier. Pharmaceutical companies are not to be taken lightly. They are very smart. They have lots of money. They have lots of lawyers, and no doubt, your hat has to go off to the lawyers in the pharmaceutical industry that wrote that bill. It is an incredible level of protection. So there are no lawsuits for injury because you can't sue them. Market force is gone for COVID-19 vaccines, just like other vaccines. How about the FDA? Are they doing their job? COVID-19 vaccines? No, they're not. Next slide, please. This is the homepage of the FDA website. Does this look like a regulatory authority to you? Now, aren't these the people that are supposed to evaluate whether this product is safe and effective before it's licensed? What does that say right there? Bivalent vaccine boosters. Are those licensed yet? Oh, no. Oh, they're not licensed. Kind of looks like a promotional ad to me. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's incredible. But this is reflective of what I'm talking about. The FDA doesn't view itself as a regulator that has to assure safe and effective. They view themselves as partner with these products. Peter Marks, who is the head of the biologics division, of the vaccine division at the FDA, in fact, can you skip ahead to, could you go to the next slide, please? He put out these promotional videos, again, about unlicensed products. This is literally the person who's deciding on whether or not, for the most part, COVID-19 vaccines are going to get licensed. And he has got these cutesy videos about why I should get an updated COVID-19 vaccine now, which is not even licensed, by the way. Do you think this man views himself as truly responsible for the safety of this product? His job is not to promote vaccines. His job is to ensure they're safe and effective to the FDA standard. There's no way after he has gone out, promoted this product, told every American to get it, there's no way he can objectively do that evaluation. I assume many of you know Maddie DeGarry. Maddie DeGarry is one of only about 1,000 and change children who participate in the 12 to 15-year-old clinical trial for the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine who got the shot. She's in a wheelchair, feeding tube, and I can tell you, we have now gotten the internal report that Pfizer submitted to the FDA explaining what happened to Maddie. When I read it, I thought, oh, they're capitulating. You read it and you're like, okay, the vaccine did it. They're all but admitting it. And then the very last line, the principal investigator paid by Pfizer says that he does not, quote, can't make this up, feel, that's the word, feel, doesn't feel. I don't feel like having chicken. I don't, I don't feel like doing a lot of things. And this guy apparently doesn't feel the vaccine is related to Maddie's injuries, despite all of the medical records and her entire chronology. TikTok video dancing, totally fine to debilitated, no other explanation. Initial emergency reports reflecting that it was the vaccine. But this guy doesn't feel it's related. And we have the email that Peter Marks reviewing that report. You know the guy right there, this guy, right here. Mr. Just a Minute. Mr. Just a Minute, who's deciding on licensing COVID-19 vaccine, says, Basically, I'll paraphrase it. Great. Principal investigator says I don't feel it's related. Done. That was it. That is your regulatory authority in action. This is the last page of the protocol that was used to design the vSafe system. And what you're going to see here at the top, these are adverse events of special interest. They're pre-specified medical conditions. And when you look down this list, you are going to see many of the serious issues that people ended up experiencing with COVID-19 vaccines. This is before the vaccine was rolled out to the public. It includes, look, blood clotting, myocarditis, pericarditis, transverse myelitis, seizures, stroke, transverse myelitis, serious issues. Here's the damning thing. Did they include these as pre-specified medical conditions in vSafe? They did not. They did not. The only thing CDC included as check-the-box options in vSafe were around 10 conditions that they say are totally normal from vaccines. Pain in the injection site. Not kidding. I can't make this stuff up. The 10 conditions are the same conditions that they say are totally normal after a vaccine. And guess what? They only collected it for 1 week after the shot. They're exactly the conditions they tell you are totally normal. They were reported at the rates of 50, 60, 70%. The CDC said, great. This is actually good. This shows reactogenicity. Shows the vaccine's working. Shows you're having an immune reaction. What did they leave off that list? Everything here. They didn't even ask about whether you had heart pain. How about that? How about asking just about chest pain? How about any of the symptoms of these conditions, at least, if you don't ask about these conditions? I think this shows some clear proof that the CDC knew these vaccines could cause potentially these issues and chose to leave them out of the vSafe system, because if they tracked it, then they would have a rate. If they included a check-the-box option, for example, myocarditis, and 500,000 people reported it out of the 10 million, they would know it's 5%. That data would be really damning for them. So instead, they left a free text field that you could type stuff in if you wanted to. And they're saying that that can't be released to the public.